Hello and welcome to the MDF in isolation. My name is Jade. Unfortunately, I can't be out on farm right now, although I'd very much like to be, but we'd still like to present our e-media videos as normal. So an issue which I think will be relevant at this time of the year, given our hopefully wet winter, is the use of spinner cuts to alleviate waterlogging on some of our less well-draining flood irrigation bays. So what we've done at the MDF is we've used spinner cuts on these bays to stop the transient waterlogging and pugging in winter and alleviate scald and weed issues in summer. So what the spinner cuts are they're simply channels made with a rotary drainer. They're about 50 millimetres deep, and they usually there are about 4 per traditional flood irrigation bay, so roughly 10 metres apart. And what they do is that they augment the slope of the bay where it's not efficient enough by itself. So by having these small channels, which are about 10 metres apart, the flood irrigation water as it's going across the bay has localised areas of slope as well as the traditional slope of the bay itself. What we find with these spinner cuts is that as the flood irrigation water goes across the bay, a lot of it obviously soaks into the root zone and some is evaporated, but there's a point in time where there's a very thin film of water, about 1 centimetre, left on the soil surface. It can't readily evaporate due to low temperatures and surface tension, and it also really can't get into the root zone because the root zone is already saturated. However, with that thin film of water sitting there, oxygen cannot get into the root zone through that water. So the root zone, which our ryegrass plants are utilising, is anaerobic. There's therefore no oxygen in it because it's fully waterlogged, and we have to wait for that thin surface film of water to move. Sometimes this transient waterlogging, as we call it, with the thin film of water, can last up to as much as a day, and it really impacts on our ryegrass performance. So what we do with these spinner cuts is we try and encourage the water to flow more quickly away from the bay, and this will help us, again, prevent pugging and transient waterlogging in winter and prevent scald in summer. So the bigger issue in summer is that the ryegrass plants become scalded by that thin film of water sitting on the surface and heating up in the sun. So it essentially boils the plants. Ryegrass is really very intolerant of this, but summer weeds aren't. So we see distichum and wild millet in particular coming into our paddocks in areas where the ryegrass has died from scald. Also, another effect that the spinner cuts have is improve our nitrogen use efficiency. So there's less emissions from the paddocks if they're not waterlogged as much, and that means our nitrogen fertiliser is staying where it's needed and encouraging pasture performance. On the spinner cut paddocks at the MDF, we have seen better pasture composition during the summer, and hopefully we will also see less transient waterlogging in the winter and higher pasture growth. This, I think, is a quick and efficient way of improving pasture performance on slow irrigation flood bays without necessarily going to the expense of re-laser grading. So as an interim measure, I think it's very effective. It can pave the way towards greater pasture performance. If you'd like to know more, please visit the MDF website. There is another longer video on that website, and there's also a fact sheet. If you'd like to like this post or comment below, that would be lovely. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.